Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of That's Not an Error. What is this series? Normally, this is the series where I go on eBay looking for sellers who have things that they are claiming are errors and they are not. Or I go on eBay and I find sellers that find quote unquote fancy serial numbers that just are not rare. All you have to do is look and you'll find them yourself. I will contact these people, explain to them what they have, and tell them how common it is, what it's actually worth. And many of the sellers will go, "Oh, I didn't know." And they take it down because they aren't in the business of ripping people off. However, there are a number of sellers on eBay whose primary and sole job is to rip you off. Those are the ones that usually they come at me. Those are the ones that get videos. I had an incident where I had a particular seller whose name I can no longer say, and no, it's not Kingdom Currency, who demanded that I take stuff down, and he gave me a cease and desist letter and said, "You cannot use my name." So I made a video. I had already made the video, and the video that I had did show his name. So rather than posting the video that showed his name, I reshot the video, and I just shot the video zooming in on my own video on my own computer screen so that I could not, I wouldn't be really reviewing his name. All you could see was the picture of his item. And he contacted eBay and got a copyright strike on me because I guess, I don't know how he worded it, but he must have worded it in such a way that he made it sound like I just showed his video. I didn't. I showed a picture of a $1 bill that didn't have his name anywhere at all. But he's claiming that I showed his video. YouTube took down my video, gave me a copyright strike. That doesn't change the fact that everything I said in the video is true. Therefore, I have to do the video a third time, and this is it. So, I don't care who the seller is. It's irrelevant who the seller is. There are many sellers on eBay selling crap. Understand that. And you can go on eBay and you can search for all the items I'm going to talk about and see how many people are selling this type of crap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through those notes for a third time now. This way it will stay up on YouTube, and we're going to discuss exactly what it was. All right. The first note that he was talking about, this person was trying to sell a note that had 420 on it. Here's a note, 420. This has got 420. Ha ha ha, isn't that funny? That doesn't make this note rare. It doesn't make this note valuable. In fact, this is the little stack of notes that I had that I was going to send back to the bank. I got halfway through this stack when I found this one. It's not hard to find. Why is it not hard to find? The whole point of this note is there is a 3-digit number on this note. It could be any 3-digit number, okay? A 3-digit number starts 001, and then as you count up, eventually you get 998, 999, and then 000, which means there are 1,000 combinations for any 3-digit number. The problem is that 3-digit number could be the first 3 digits, where the 763 is. There's a 1 in 1,000 chance of that happening. It could be in the second 3 digits, where the 634 is. There's 1 in 1,000 chances of that happening. It could be in the third place, where the 342 is. There's 1 in 1,000 chances of that happening. It could be in the fourth position, which would be the 420. There's 1 in 1,000 chances of that. It could be in the fifth position, which is where the 250 is. There's 1 in 1,000 chances of that. Or it could be in the sixth position, where the 058 is. Now, that means for every 1,000 notes, there are 6 ways that you're going to find 420. 6. If there were 5 ways, that would be 1 in 200. So 6 is going to put you at about 1 in 150. So for every 150 notes you look at, you're going to find one that's got 420 on it. That's not rare. That's not worth anything. That's literally grabbing a handful of notes and going through them. You will probably find a note that has 420 on it. I don't know how much clearer I have to make it that isn't worth anything and that is easy to find. If you really want a note with 420 on it, that's the amount of effort you have to go through, rather than sending off $3, $4, $5, $6 for someone who went through this effort for you. Not to mention the fact that you then have to pay for shipping. So no, this isn't worth anything. The other part is when you do pay for this note, when you do pay for a note with 420 in there, eventually you're just going to spend it, because no dealer is ever going to buy that from you. It's not going to go up in value. And like I said, if you're not getting it because you just think it's funny, well, great. That's it. That's all it took. 150 notes, and there's one. So go to the bank, buy 100 singles, look through them. If you can't find one, return those, get another strap. You'll find one. They are that common. 1 in 150. No, they are not worth anything. They will never be worth anything. No respectable dealer would ever sell these. And if you see somebody trying to sell a note with 420, that just lets you know the credibility of that particular seller. And it's not one particular seller, it's every single one of them. Every single seller that's trying to sell you 420 on a note. I just told you how easy that is. What do you think their motivation is? It's to rip people off. That's the motivation, because there is no value, none, zero whatsoever. That's how easy it is to find. My videos are based on educating the public. That's what I am doing. I am educating people as to how common these are, how easy they are to find, and why they are not worth money. All right, another thing that he had. This is going to be a process, so we're going to go through this process here. I'm going to start off with a note like this. This is a true binary, okay? All the digits in this serial number are zeros and ones. There is something called the binary code. That's what computer programmers use to program computers, a series of zeros and ones. We use a variant of that today called a barcode. A barcode reads either there's a line or there's not a line, zeros and ones. That is the binary code. The binary code exists. It's used every day. Computer programmers knew that zeros and ones had meaning. If you string a bunch of zeros and ones together, it means something to a computer. So you know how cool it would be to find a note that was all zeros and ones? Absolutely. That would be very cool. What if you found 3 or 4 of these and punched all that in? What would it say to the computer? Wouldn't that be interesting to see? I mean, that's just kind of fascinating. Anyway, the problem is that zeros and ones are very, very tough to find. We're talking a serial number that has 8 digits. The highest you could make this would be 999999999. Essentially 100 million, okay? Out of 100 million combinations, do you know how many combinations there are that would make a binary like that of ones and zeros? Here is the Green Guide of Fancy Serial Numbers, a beginner's guide. And when they talk about trinaries, here we go. A true trinary, which is zeros and ones. There's the example. The reoccurrence, 255. Out of 100 million number combinations, there are 255 ways to make a true binary featuring ones and zeros. That's it. They even list a price here, 25 to 500. I don't know how accurate the price is. I do know how accurate this number is. So out of 100 million, your chances of finding this, there are only 255. I'm pretty sure that explains how rare these particular notes are. The problem is that if you're looking for one of these, you're going to get bored really quick when there's only 255 out of every 100 million. That's 2 per million. So if you search 1 million notes, you might find 2. If you search 500,000 notes, you might find 1. Do you see how that's rare? Do you see how that's valuable? Okay. Well, some people didn't see how that was, didn't understand how hard it was to find those, so they decided to look for something a little easier to find. They went, well, if a true binary is zeros and ones, what if we just go with a regular binary, which is any 2 digits? So here's a note that has all 4s and 6s. This is a regular binary. And if we consult the book, let's look. Here's the book, a binary. And we can see that a binary has 11,430 different ways it can be made. That's a lot more than 255. But it's still a small number. 11,430 is a really, really small number. The thing is that when we start comparing that number, some of you may have heard of a radar. Let's see if I've got an example. A radar is like this. When you have 392999293, if you start on the outside and work your way in, you've got 3929. This number reads the same forward and back. To make a radar, you can start with any 4 digits. And then there are still 4 digits afterwards. The 4 digits afterwards, there are 10,000 combinations. So the odds of finding a radar would be one of those 10,000 combinations. There's only one way to make this 4-digit number into a radar. So the odds of finding a radar are 1 in 10,000. There's the cousin of a radar, which is a repeater, and once again, you're talking about it repeats 7990, 7990. If I look at the first 4 digits, there are 10,000 other possibilities to go with it. With 10,000 other possibilities, only one of them is going to be the exact match. So in both of these conditions, the odds of finding them are 1 in 10,000. Now, because of the numbering system, notes only go up to 96 million. They don't go up to 100 million. Because of that, it's actually less than 10,000, your odds of finding it. If I consult the book, I can go right over here and see that a full radar in the book, there is actually 8,579 combinations. The reason it's not 10,000, like I said, there'd be 10,000 combinations if we went through 100 million, but we aren't going through 100 million. We're only going through 96 million. That is what the difference is. So, when we start talking about a binary with 11,000 possible combinations versus a radar, here we go, versus a radar or a repeater, these have 8,000 combinations and these have 11,000 combinations. That means the binaries are more common than radars or repeaters. A radar or a repeater sells for $20 to $40. So that would mean that the binary should sell for about that or less because it is more common. There are more combinations of a binary than there are for radars. There's 8,000, 8,900 of these, and there's 11,000 of these. So more of these makes these easier to find than radars and repeaters. So these are still hard to find, okay? You're still going to have to go through, on average, 10,000 notes to come across one. That's rare. That's worth money. Well, people don't like to look for rare. And they would much rather be able to find stuff. And that brings us to the next category. That would be a trinary. Now, let me just open this up here. Here we go. This is a trinary. It has 0s, 1s, and 8s. There are 3 different digits here. Because there's only 3 digits, we call it a trinary. Trinaries aren't 1 out of 8,000 or 1 out of 11,000. There are 700,000 combinations for trinaries. 700,000. In fact, I wonder if I've got it here in the book. Yeah, here it is. Trinaries. 600 and 95,220. That is how many different combinations there are for trinaries. 695,000. So we'll just call it 700,000 to make it easier. There's 255 of these. There are 11,000 of these. There are 700,000 of these. That makes these worthless. For every one of these that you're going to find, for every binary you find, you're going to find 70 trinaries. So if a binary is worth $20, that would make 70 trinaries worth $20. That's nothing. That's not worth that. That's less than face value. So there is no value over face. That's pretty easy to do. In fact, if I grab my box of trinaries, I have roughly 1,500 trinaries in here. I am not saving trinaries because they are worth money. I save trinaries because I actually like collecting. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find notes that have the exact same serial number. And I've done that on numerous occasions. So once again, a lot of you wonder why I have all these trinaries, and the whole point of it is I try to pair notes. For instance, here's a trinary, 17337713, and look at that, 17337713. I paired them. A trinary isn't worth anything. A paired trinary probably isn't worth anything. But every time I find trinaries, they go in this box. To me, this is a great savings account. I do not sell my trinaries. I do not buy trinaries. I do not go on eBay looking to match my trinaries with somebody else's trinaries. The fun for me is to find my own trinaries and to pair them like this. I did not go out and buy them to pair them. I found them in circulation. That's kind of cool. Here's another example. I also do quads. I'll save quads for the same reason. They are not worth anything. Even when you pair them, they are not worth anything. To pair the notes, though, is literally a 1 in 100 million shot. There's 100 million combinations. This one, not only did I pair the numbers, I paired the block. That's 24. No, actually, it's bigger than that because there's 12 different reserves and 24 different letters that it could be. That's a big number. So you start off with 100 million, multiply it by 12, and then multiply that number by 24. That's the odds of pairing a note, serial number, and block. And I did it. That's why I save trinaries. That's why I save quads for moments like this. And you know something? This might be worth a little bit of money because this is definitely rare. I digress. I save all these trinaries. I do not believe that they are worth anything. It is a wonderful savings account because once I'm done trying to pair them, I can just take these to the bank and cash them in for $1. I'm not going to rip anybody off. I'm just going to cash them in. With that being said, I've made it crystal clear how worthless trinaries are because, like I said, for every radar, there are 70 trinaries. So people decided that they wanted to try to make trinaries rare. So what they did was they picked 3 digits, the lowest 3 digits, and called them a true trinary. Because when you have a true binary, you have zeros and ones. So the logical step would be a true trinary would be zeros, ones, and twos. Zeros, ones, and twos aren't anything. There is no trinary code. There is no trinary system. There is nothing that uses zeros, ones, and twos. There is zeros and ones. That's a real thing. Inventing a new category and calling zeros, ones, and twos a true trinary does not make it worth money. This is no different than 7s, 8s, and 9s. Some people like to say, oh, well, A binary, what's the difference between the zeros and ones versus eights and nines? Well, the difference is there is a binary code. There is no code for eights and nines. There is no codes for sixes and fours. There is a code for zeros and ones. There is not a code for zeros, ones, and twos. So this is nothing special. It's just a trinary. It's worth face value, and this is how people make an attempt to make trinaries seem rare. They will go through the math and tell you, oh, the odds of finding a trinary, a true trinary, are only this. Well, if you want me to make something seem rare, fine. The odds of finding a note that has 76342058 are 1 in 100 million. That means this note is 1 in 100 million, so this note must be rare. Forget the fact that there's no value to it. There's nothing special about it. It's 1 in 100 million. That should make it rare enough, right? See how silly that argument is? So when you tell somebody, when you put a name on this and call it a true trinary, that does not make it worth anything. It's still worthless. But even then, trinaries are still a little tougher to find than anything else. The fact that you have to go through, well, I go through 1,000 notes a week, and you'll see me pull out a dozen trinaries or so. Actually, I think I average 7 trinaries per 1,000. That's what 700,000 would be out of 100 million. So yeah, I go through 1,000 notes. I'll pull 7 trinaries. They're worthless. They are not rare. They are not hard to find. But people don't want to go through 1,000 notes. They want to go through whatever they have in their pocket and find something worth money. So when somebody wants to look through 20 notes and find something valuable, they invented the next step, the true quadrinary. This is zeros, ones, twos, and threes. This is a joke and a half. I joked about it in the past, and now people are trying to sell these. I don't even have a book that would explain how rare these are or how common these are, because it's not a thing. It was a joke that went wild. There is no such thing as a true quadrinary, because nothing uses a quadrinary code. No, there is nothing that uses a 0, 1, 2, and 3 code. And once again, for those of you who want to argue, oh, those are the 3 lowest digits, well, are you collecting 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s? No, because that's not worth anything either. That doesn't represent anything. So this is worthless. When you see someone trying to make up a term, a true quadrinary, and sell it for money, what are they selling it for? That's the other question, okay? This could easily be worth hundreds of dollars. This one's a star. It's probably worth even more. That's the true binary. A regular binary, you're talking $20. Okay, well, if a regular binary is $20 and there's 11,000 of these, what's a trinary worth when there's 700,000? Well, clearly 20 divided by 70, that brings you to a number less than $1. So they're worth less than face value. Well, they're worth face value, that's it. But when you compare a trinary to a quadrinary, you're already starting with 0 as a base number. So now there's even more of these. You see how it just doesn't make sense? You see how some people are so desperate to rip people off that they will go through the effort of posting thousands of notes on eBay, trying to rip people off, knowing that, oh, if they sell 10 or 20 notes over the course of the month, that made them $60 or whatever. Maybe over the course of a couple of years, they might make $1,000 ripping people off. Nobody is ever going to buy these notes from you. If you buy one of these notes, you're going to be sitting on it for the rest of your life. You're probably going to end up spending it. No dealer is going to give you anything for it. Your only option is going to be to rip someone else off, because if a dealer won't buy it from you, it's not worth anything. A dealer will sell anything that has value. If you've been in a coin shop, every dealer has that giant bucket of foreign coins that they sell by the pound. That's how much they think of those. Yet you will not find a true trinary or a true quadrinary in their shop, because they don't want to ruin their reputation. So, this is the video that I had to make. because I got a copyright strike on my own video. I did a video and then I recorded my video, and YouTube thought the person complaining was complaining that I copied his video. I did not copy his video. It was my video. It was his picture of a $1 bill. So my violation was showing a picture of a $1 bill. But there's no explaining that to YouTube, because for me to complain, I would have to convince the person whose dollar bill it was to reinstate my video, and that's not going to happen. So I guess I will just be setting aside neat little things I find during my searches, and I will do it that way, because I cannot get a copyright strike for stuff that I find myself and tell you about. If you learned anything new this week, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.